Our opening words this morning. Ooh. Hold on. There we go. Our opening words this morning are a poem from David White, but they're based on a painting by Jules Breton, and both are titled The Song of the Lark.
It's in my living room.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And it's also hanging in Lark's living room. Do you know this poem? Great. Then we'll dedicate this to Lark. The song begins, and the eyes are lifted, but the sickle points to the ground. Its downward curve forgotten in the song she hears, while over the dark wood, rising or falling, the sun lifts on cool air the small body of a singing lark. The song falls, the eyes raise, the mouth opens, and her bare feet on the earth have stopped. Whoever listens in this silence as she listens will also stand open, thoughtless, frightened by the joy she feels, the pathway in the field branching to 100 more no one has explored. What is called in her rises from the ground and is found in her body. What she is given is secret even from her. This silence is the seed in her of everything she is, and falling through her body to the ground from which she comes, it finds a hidden place to grow and rises and flowers in old wild places where the dark-edged sickle cannot go.
In the midst of pain, I choose love. In the midst of pain, I choose love.
Wow, that was amazing. Isabel Collins, who's gone downstairs to help with the children right now, because this is a busy place. She's our soloist today. She's Nicole's daughter, Nicole Collins, our music director. Lark Lewis, tinkling the ivories today. And Richard and Kathleen are keeping us mic'd and things running smoothly on Zoom and YouTube. And I'm Laura Thompson. I'm the minister here. Oh, thanks. I'll take that. I'll take it. Humble as I am, I'll take that. Welcome to Minnesota Valley. We're located in Minnesota Valley, which is the ancient, spiritual, and contemporary homelands of the Dakota people. Again, I welcome you. We extend a welcome especially to all who have gathered today, who it might be their first time. If it is your first time here, we have a visitor form that you can fill out downstairs if you're here in person. If you're on Zoom or YouTube, you can find a link to that form in the chat or the comments. But we want to welcome everybody here today. Everybody who might be new or here for their 10th time or here for their 500th time. Those of you who maybe we haven't seen in a while, it's good to see your faces today, including former ministers and former minister spouses. And former, our music minister emeritus is also here. Sonia's here. So it's wonderful. Like the great state of Minnesota that we live in, we welcome and affirm you in your gender identity. That can have applause because we passed some legislation this week to protect folks. We affirm and celebrate sexual orientations of all, and we journey with you on your spiritual path wherever that takes you. We honor your wholeness and your brokenness. Whether from word or song or companionship today, we hope that you'll find something to renew your spirit. That's the reason we come together on Sundays, a little reboot. Our guest speaker today is Reverend Dr. David Breeden, who's the lead minister over at First Unitarian Society, just a stone's throw from here, and he's the former minister here. David also works with the Minnesota Interfaith Clergy for end-of-life options, and we are so grateful to have him back today for his reflection on the subject, A Theology for Personal Choice. And then I want to invite Harlan up today to give you an invitation. Harlan Limpert is also works with Minnesota Interfaith Clergy for end-of-life choices.
Hi, just a quick introduction. I am Harlan Limpert. I'm a UU minister. And I'm leading the forum after this service, and I'm hoping to see every one of you here to learn more about medical aid in dying. We'll give you an update. I spoke here about 3 years ago, but there's lots happening, and I want to give you an update. So please stick around if you can. Thanks.
It's important that we come together for this talk today afterwards with, the legislation that passed this week is in part because we have elected officials who hold our same values. But those elected officials are holding the House and the Senate with very narrow margins, very narrow. So things like the End-of-Life Care Act, if that comes up this session, we need to be making sure, us folks in the suburbs and the purple regions, that we are calling and contacting our legislators because they get a lot of pressure from folks on the other side of these issues. Not maybe so much in the FUS parish of things where it's a lot bluer than we are, but here, those our representatives and senators get a lot of pressure from the other side too. So this is not a time for us to sit back on any of the issues that we support, but it's a time for us all to, charge, right? Right. That's my political statement for the day. We want to invite you to grab some coffee and a snack in between the service today and the presentation. We'll probably have like a 15-minute break. I'll start ringing bells or hollering when you should all come back together. But I want you to know that the refreshments are going to be served upstairs today on the table over by the fireside room because the youth need downstairs to practice for an upcoming event that's happening. To stay up to date on all the events that are happening, you should follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And you should also check the May newsletter, which just came out last week and should be in your inboxes. And if you don't find it in your inbox because you have too many things in there like I do, or it went to your spam folder, which sometimes it does, you can always go to the website and just click on newsletter and find the latest newsletter. But we return to today and this moment. Again, welcome to Minnesota Valley UU Fellowship. It is a joy to be together today, and I ask that you'll all join and sing in our opening hymn, which is Breaths, beautiful piece that's 1001 in the teal hymnal, where the words will be up here.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying grass. They are with the owning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in the homes. They are with us in the crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish,
Will you all please join me in the words for lighting our chalice this morning? They're in your order of service or printed on the screen behind me. Today, our words come from Renee Maria Rilke. You see, I want a lot. Maybe I want it all. The darkness of each endless fall. The shimmering light of each ascent. And will you all please join in singing our children out? They're going to head downstairs for a little bit of activity.
your people are my people. Your
That is the sound of joy. Or maybe not. I'm not sure what it was. Could have gone either way, right? Each week, we set aside a few moments to lift up the joys and sorrows of the congregation. Just want to talk about this for a minute. In a different type of church, this would be a community prayer. Essentially, that's what this space is. It's space for us to lift up those things in our hearts that are bringing more light into our lives, that are bringing joy, that call upon us to just say, yes, hooray. And also to put forward those things that are challenging and sorrowful, that are too hard to carry on our own. So this is a really special space that we do this in. And we invite you to share whatever it is that you have to share today. If you're in person, you can raise your hand. And do we have ushers?
Yeah.
Steve and Andrea, you want to go, Steve, and grab a microphone? Were you raising your hand for a joy and sorrow, or raising your hand to usher?
Someone asked me to.
Yeah.
Who's saying this? It's me.
All right. So yeah, you can raise your hand, and they will come around with a microphone. If you're watching on Zoom, you can type it in the chat, and we'll read that out loud here. And if you're watching on YouTube, whether it's now or next Tuesday at 4 a.m., we invite you to write something in the comments to be shared in that comment space. And before anybody does share anything, I want to lift up two things. First of all is a joy, and that little whelp is a clear reminder of it from, I think that was one of the twins. Those of you that may not have noticed, we have toddler twins here now. They are going to be part of the service. Next week is going to be Family Celebration Sunday, and we are doing child dedications. This is huge. We haven't done one in a really long time, and the fact that we have children to dedicate into this community is an amazing blessing, and I hope that you'll all join us for that. We're also going to be lifting up the OWL facilitators who helped so much this year, and the teachers, and recognizing Maria, who's done an amazing job with some credentialing work. So please come next week to celebrate families who are really the future of this congregation. And then I have a sorrow to share, because our grief is heavy, and it's better when we can share it with others to carry. And that is that Jenny Christensen's daughter, Paula, passed away last week. She had been living with ALS for many years. And so it was one of those deaths that's also a blessing, and yet so much grief and challenge in those years leading up to it. So please keep Jenny and her family in your thoughts, and if you're a friend to her, reach out and say hello to her. I'm sure she'd love to have your call or visit. What else do we have to lift up into this space today?
I'm just going to talk about the joy that I had with music this weekend. We're very lucky here to have music every Sunday with Nicole and with Lark and occasionally Tom. They're wonderful. But I went to the Minnesota Orchestra on Friday and heard a phenomenal performance by Garrick Olson, who played Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 1, and it was absolutely amazing. And he received a standing ovation, and then he followed it up with a beautiful Chopin Nocturne. And then yesterday, I went to a local musical theater, the Bloomington Arts Theater, and saw the Pajama Game. And I'm telling you, it is well worth going to. Just a phenomenal performance. Terrific.
Good morning. I'm Barb Gillian. This is also about the power of music. I was downstairs greeting this morning, but I could hear the song "Let the Mystery Be" being played, and I don't know, was that you, Lark, or was it?
Oh, no, it was just for the video
Richard?
announcements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a bittersweet song for me. It was a favorite of my husband Jerry's, and he and his group, Zenith Avenue, played it often here. And thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Marcy and have been coming, around a month now, and so glad I had gotten myself here. It had been a goal for a long time, and everybody's just been so wonderful. And I ended up, I had to stop driving 3 years ago, got blind in one eye from glaucoma. It's amazing what a difference it makes. But at any rate, Laura took it in hand to find some people that might be willing to give rides, and I did find a ride for going home today, and yeah, people have been so generous about their time and kindness and helping. I certainly appreciate that. That for sure they got me set. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Coate. Please lift up one of my son's best friends from middle school. They're both 15. My son's friend lost his father after a very long battle with mental illness. They found him in the river. It's very, very sad, but he's at peace.
I'm Janice Stevens. I am thinking this week of Jay Chrishell and Dee Mauer, who are hiking the Appalachian Trail. They began yesterday.
I'm Betty Miller, and I tried something new this year. Use milk jugs to make little tiny greenhouses, put seeds in them in January out on my back porch. I have lots of little tiny plants.
Was there anything lifted up on Zoom this morning? No? We lift up all the joys and sorrows that are mentioned alongside the joys and sorrows in our hearts, and I ask that you join me in our sung response. As I mentioned in the beginning of the service, we come here week after week a lot of times just to reboot and kind of renew ourselves. And that is one of the purposes for coming together. And one great way to just kind of reboot yourself is just a short, silent meditation. And I have to say that there's something about engaging in that in a space with 50-some people as opposed to doing it by yourself that has a different kind of resonance with your heart and your spirit. So I invite you all to find a comfortable sitting position. They say it's better if you uncross your legs. That's probably science for some reason. So uncross your legs. Relax your shoulders. Just kind of feel the weight of your body in the chair. Breathe in and breathe out. And when you're ready, come on back to the space together. And I hope that you find time for a little bit of that during the week. Time to remember that you're breathing, time to remember that your feet are indeed on the ground. It helps us to get through, and it's a great way to just refresh. This is the last Sunday in April. This month, we've been sharing our plate with a light, whom we are working with, actually with First Unitarian Society. They are the organization that we're working with that's helping to sponsor Ukrainian refugee families. We have a team here that's working on that. There's more information about that back on the table where the coffee will be after the service if you want to learn more or sign up to help. But we are finishing up with our donations for them today, so I invite you to be generous, and I invite the ushers to please come forward to take the offering. I have the baskets up here, and a reminder to please pass around that sign-up sheet. Our reading today is from an October 2016 statement from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is the Archbishop Emeritus of Cape Town and a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. It's titled, "When My Time Comes." Throughout my life, I have been fortunate to have spent time working for the dignity of the living. I've campaigned passionately for people in my country and the world for their God-given rights. Now, as I turn 85 on Friday, with my life closer to its end than its beginning, I wish to help give people dignity in dying. Just as I have firmly argued for compassion and fairness in life, I believe that terminally ill people should be treated with the same compassion and fairness when it comes to their deaths. Dying people should have the right to choose how and when they leave Mother Earth. I believe that alongside the wonderful palliative care that exists, the choices should include a dignified, assisted death. Will you all please welcome back to our pulpit Reverend David Breeden.
Thanks for inviting us here today. So good to be back and to see faces that I recognize out there. Everyone is holding your age very well, I would quickly. Or yes, my eyesight might be just getting worse. That's the other. I do want to thank Rev. Laura for the invitation this morning. It's great to visit here. So those of you who don't know me, I retired as an English professor and went back to seminary in Chicago. In sort of mid-career, I was 50 at the time, and I wanted to remain in Chicago. My wife is from Chicago. I moved there and I never wanted to leave. It feels like home. But my wife had lived uptown a few years back before Peace Corps, and she convinced me that it was a little Chicago, that it has great restaurants here and you can actually park, which is actually true. And it's still true, you can't park in Chicago. I was called from here to the historically humanist congregation, First Unitarian Society, and thanks for working with us there. It was fortuitous for me to be called to a humanist congregation. I joined Unitarian Universalism way back in the 70s as a UU humanist and had always gone to humanistic meetings. As a matter of fact, I didn't hear a UU minister speak until I'd been a UU for like 25 years. There just weren't any in the spaces where I was. Now, I know that Unitarian Universalism has a bunch of umbrella viewpoints within it, and that can make going deeper into ethics a complicated matter. But I'm going to use my personal humanist theological thinking in order to draw some conclusions, and I hope, anyway, and my ideas do allow for some conceptions of the deity, such as Desmond Tutu's, but not others, and we know those folks too. You know, the phrase life and death, right? Life and death, right? It just trippingly off the tongue, right? It just, you say that. But the fact of the existence of that simple and condensed phrase in English indicates how long people have understood that life and death are a package deal, right? Death dies, imbues with life all the time. Some philosophers have claimed that philosophy is only about learning how to die. And so, life and death. They're facts, but from those facts, then, we develop values. Life and death, facts. What do we do between this one and this one? Those are our values. We hope, anyway. Facts and values. We human beings are value-creating animals, I believe, right? We're also social animals. Those go together well sometimes, and sometimes they don't. Another fact is that in human experience, it's sometimes true that dominant groups force their thinking on subordinated groups. Free thinkers, atheists, agnostics have long experienced that. Now, I know that what I'm saying is abstract so far, but I am going to concretize this as we work through. Now, I contend that the birth of free thought, humanism, secular thinking, etc., right, that whatever you want to label it, I contend that free thought occurs anywhere and any time that people seek answers that are not supernatural. Why does it rain? God did it. God does that. Why does it rain? One of the first questions the Greek scientists asked were, can the gods make it rain without clouds? Very logical question. Yes and no means is a very big theological difference, yes and no. Why do people die? Well, because God has called them home. That's what I was taught as a young Pentecostal. His number was up. God knows all the hairs on your head. So that's the way that works. Why do people die? Well, another opinion is that it's because we're biological organisms. Which is true? Well, that's difficult. Why do some people suffer great pain while they're dying? Most of us have known people who died in their sleep. Good way to go. And we know of those who have died other ways. Well, one answer is because God is purifying the sin of that person. That's called redemptive suffering, and it is a big deal within Christian tradition, especially Roman Catholic Christian tradition. You gotta let God kill that person off, right? That's one answer to the question. Why do people suffer great pain as they're dying? Another answer is because superstitious people control the dying process and won't let us get compassionate medical care at the end of life. That happens to be my answer, and that's why I'm a proud member of the Minnesota Interfaith Clergy for End-of-Life Options. As freethinkers and progressives, we often find ourselves out in front on issues such as this. That's what we've got to do, though, in this particular case, because superstition has not gone away. The Unitarian Universalist tradition and the tradition of several liberal religious traditions believe that personal choice is a sacred right. Personal choice is a cornerstone of liberal thought. In 1859, the British philosopher John Stuart Mill published his book, which was, now we know, co-written with his wife. It was sort of in Victorian times, you didn't get to talk about that, right? But actually, Harriet Taylor Mill was probably the better philosopher while they were married, but she died in 1858. They published the book, he published the book in 1859, On Liberty. Now, in that book, they define liberty as the maximization of personal freedom, right? The maximization of personal freedom. That sounds like liberty, doesn't it? Authority is the maximization of social safety. The trains run on time, right? Freedom, safety. They saw that as the poles. Now, you can disagree with that, but let's think it through for a little bit. Freedom over here, safety over here. We can disagree with the premise, but let's just think it through, all right? So, question, what is freedom when we consider medical aid in dying? Which Harlan will definitely talk specifically about what we're doing in Minnesota. We've been working on this for a long time, right? What's freedom when we consider medical aid in dying? Well, it's the freedom of a person who is terminally ill to have relief from that pain. All right? It's really that simple. So what is the safety, then, here's the freedom, what is the safety imposed by government control when it comes to medical aid in dying? Well, I guess there are two answers. One, it is possible for the living to abuse medical aid in dying, right, and thus deprive someone of the safety of their own choice. It's possible. The legislation in this state is real careful to prevent that. So the safety is there with the freedom, all right? Two, another possible understanding of safety, the long and deep tradition of Christianity that only God gets to off you, all right? Now, for many of us, that safety is merely absurd. What's the majority? In this state, the majority of people think that's absurd, actually, right? That's why we're going to win eventually, despite lots of blocks. All right. Bell Hooks puts it this way. She said, dominator culture has tried to keep us all afraid. They're going to kill, they're going to make, right? Dominator culture has tried to make us all afraid, to make us choose safety instead of risk. Choose safety instead of risk. Sameness instead of diversity. Moving through that fear, finding out what connects us, reveling in our differences. This is the process that brings us closer. All right? So safety, which can turn into theocracy pretty quickly. We have seen in some states in the country, right? One size fits all laws that force sameness in decisions. And that is what we have in this case right now. Freedom implies risk, yes. Who decides among those choices that I just laid out? Well, the Mills, and I do say that because they were co-writers of this book, the Mills thought that a social structure balances between those two poles, anarchy and tyranny. And the balance between those two undesirable situations is democracy, which they thought was a secular political system in which ideally the demos, right, democracy, the people, Greek word, the demos, the populace, consider all sides of an issue, and then they compromise on some of the disagreements, some aspects of that, and then they reach a wise decision. Imagine that, right? But ideally anyway, right? And that's why we are here. We want the voters to know the real information. We want you to know the truth instead of the fear. The ideal of liberalism is that under no circumstances do we force our ideas on others. Were we going to force ministers to marry gay people? No, we kept saying, no, we're not out to do that. We don't care about your church, you know. Just let us have the freedom to do what we can do and what we believe we should do, right? We're not forcing our ideas on other people. But sometimes that becomes problematic when you're talking about politics, isn't it? We want secular government for exactly that reason, that we're thinking about these issues only from a perspective of what makes sense for the whole. People who embrace this separation of church and state, you're all invited Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. to the Capitol and that crazy round room down below the rotunda that holds the whole thing up. We're going to have the Secular Day of Reason at the Capitol. Come on by. We now have a secular caucus at the Capitol of people, not just atheists or agnostics, but also those who believe in the separation of church and state, which, again, if you're a Muslim, you need to be believing in, right? And we need to be talking about that, right? People who embrace the separation of church and state, religion and state, are saying, in essence, I don't care what you think about any of the multiple human gods out there. What I care about is how you behave. How do you act? Now, what's that tell us? It tells us that in terms of social life, behavior is what matters. right? Now, the famous way that the Mills put this is that my freedom, the freedom of my fist, ends where your nose begins, right? That's the famous old one. And then they also induced the justly famous concept of the harm principle. We nowadays know that they got that from the witches, right? But the harm principle in which each of us should be free to act in the world however we wish to act, right? So long as our actions do no harm to another, right? Right? Do no harm. Now, to go back a bit, the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, one of my books that I read most days, he has this to say about his favorite philosopher, Epictetus. Not Epicurus, Epictetus, all right? Epictetus taught that each of us must develop an art of giving assent, all right? And in actions, each of us must be careful about the circumstance that an action be consistent with the common good, all right? And the reason of its being done. Then ask if the action is mere ego or not, all right? And if it will interfere with nature, natural laws. Then any question is not difficult. Only ask, is this action sane or insane? End quote. So the decision sequence, all right, about something to give assent. Can I do this? All right. Is the action consistent with the common good? Number one question. Is the action consistent with the reason we think we're doing it? All right? Is the action merely ego? Is it all about me? Right? Is the action consistent with the laws of nature? All right? Considering this sequence, Epictetus says, any question is not difficult, sane or insane. So how about medical aid in dying? I'll run it through. It is consistent with the common good in reducing harm to the dying. Right? Isn't that a common good? It is consistent with the reason we want to do it. We have the law in place. The action for neither patient nor physician is about mere ego. How could it be? The action follows the laws of nature. Only the dying engage in the dying. Imagine that, right? So is medical aid in dying sane according to Epictetus? Yes, it certainly is. Now notice that in the Stoic examination, there's no reference to what the gods might be thinking. The Stoics in the first century were beyond that already, right? Rather, we must consult the common good, social, right? Our own self-awareness, and then the laws of nature itself. For us freethinkers, the laws of nature are understood progressively. We learn new things. And the Stoics told us, don't believe us about science. We're going to keep learning new things, and we have. So let's face it, some people in our nation and in our state live in the Bronze Age, and some live in the Iron Age, and others of us live in the here and now. And those of us who do live in the here and now don't want Bronze Age medicine. Right? It's really that simple, and we should not be forced to be engaged in doing that. Objection, but what about suicide then? All right? Is that a personal choice? Well, sort of, but suicide does harm to others. Right? It does harm to others. A terminally ill patient dying a little bit early is not doing great harm to society or others, if that makes sense to you, right? I mean, every adult has the right to get drunk. That's freedom. But do it at home, right? Don't go drive because that's social, right? So we can make these decisions, personal choice, social choice. We can make these. It's not all that complicated. We can say drunk driving is insane. Epictetus told us that, right? And of course it gets complicated. What about the situation in which my fist, freedom, and I just threatened to punch you? Free speech. That's coming up before the Supreme Court, I think, this week or next, right? Because these are the places where freedom and safety become very problematic. That's why we have a court system that we hope is making secular decisions, not Bronze Age decisions. But we've seen what happened there. Now, just as the Stoics did in the ancient world, humanists and many freethinkers do today. We strive for living well in the here and the now. We need to live in a perceived state of freedom. In other words, we need to feel free if we are free. Freedom, according to the Mills and the First Humanist Manifesto back in 1933, rather than merely reproducing traditional social patterns, freedom includes the right to education so that we can update our ethics and our laws. Human flourishing and what that means should ideally be reasoned and informed choice. That's why we call ourselves compassion and choices. A very old formulation that I use at a lot of humanist memorials and funerals: good life, good death. That's what we humanists believe in: good life, good death. A good death, in order to be a good death, must be perceived by the dying person as a good death, right? That's the only way that can work: good life, good death in this particular context. I have a choice. And as you'll learn from Harlan, most people who get the prescriptions for this medication never use it. They have the choice. They choose not to, but they can. And that empowers the terminally ill patient. My choice, you should get a choice too. And today, you have the freedom to educate yourself right here about what we're doing in the state of Minnesota. I focused on the choice aspect of compassion and choices. As for the compassion, I hope you run that through Epictetus's little model there, because I think the greatest compassion we can have is to ease suffering, and may we achieve that goal. Thank you. So may it be.
When the cold wind is a-calling and the sky is clear and bright, misty mountains sing and beckon, lead me out into the light. I will ride, I will fly, chase the wind and touch the sky. I will fly, chase the wind and touch the sky. Dark woods hide secrets, and the mountains are fierce and bold. Deep waters hold reflections of times lost long ago. I will hear their every story, take hold of my own dream. Be as strong as the seas are stormy, and proud as an eagle's scream. I will ride, I will fly, chase the wind and touch the sky. I will fly, chase the wind and touch the sky. touch the sky. Chase the wind, chase the wind, touch the sky.
Will you all please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice today? I just want to remind you that we'll have that forum with Harlan Limpert in about 15 minutes. I'll ring a bell to bring you all back in here. Feel free to bring your coffee or something to nibble on back in here, so long, and I need your promise on this, that you will keep your coffee cup in your hand. Do not set it on the chair next to you or the floor. Can we do that? Okay. Then feel free to bring your coffee back in here. I'm going to bring up David Breeden for closing words.
We'll be careful, I promise. Go out into the world, be fearless, ask questions, hold on to what is good. Strengthen the weak, comfort the fearful, serve the suffering. Do what makes you come alive, because, as the great Howard Thurman said, the world needs more people who have come alive. Rejoice in the power of the human spirit, so may it be.